Do you often feel defensive? Do you go through life thinking that a lot of the things that you're running into, a lot of the people that you're running into, a lot of the experiences that you're having are threatening in some way, and you feel the need to protect or defend yourself, either push back, fight back, kind of stand there stunned and overwhelmed with emotion, not knowing what to do, or run away and avoid everyone and everything in order to protect yourself because you often feel so threatened. If that's something that you do struggle with, then we're going to talk about this today. We're going to talk about why we get defensive, what's really going on there, and then I'm going to give you a step-by-step process that you can start using right now that's going to help you regulate your emotions when you are feeling threatened and about to get defensive, what you can do to move through that so you can go through life feeling more open and expansive and connected rather than defensive, threatened, and protected. Learning to become less defensive and more open is going to make a big difference in your life, and it's just going to give you so much more joy and freedom. So I am excited to teach these to you, and I'm excited for you to apply them. If you're new here, welcome to our incredible little corner on the internet. Take a second, introduce yourself in the comment section below. If you're back again, say hello. It's always good to have you. For my shifters who are here, special hello to you. And yeah, identify yourself in the comment section. If you're wondering what a shifter is, they are the members of my membership community, the Shift Society, where we're taking this work to a deeper level and getting supported and guided and accountability, having accountability the whole way through. You can get more information about the Shift Society in the description below. Also, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Button's about right down there. Like the video. If you could hit the like button, that would be amazing. I know it's a small thing, but it actually makes a big difference, and I really appreciate that. So thank you for all of you people who do hit the like button, and for those of you who haven't, if you could take a moment, that would be awesome. Either way, with all of this, my name is Kristina, and I am a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, a coach, the creator of my membership community that I talked about, the Shift Society, and I help heart-centered humans get through the crap that is holding them back, so that they can like themselves and their lives more every day. Let's get into talking about being less defensive and understanding that when we're going through our everyday lives feeling defensive, realizing that most of the things we are defending ourselves against are not actual threats to our existence. There's a difference in just sort of our human experience between an actual threat to our safety and a threat to our ego. And now when it comes to our safety being threatened, yeah, we typically do need to defend ourselves. If you're, out in a forest and get cornered by a ravenous wolf, you're going to want to defend yourself to the best of your ability, leave nothing on the table, and, try to get out of there alive. That is completely normal and natural to fight back, to do what you need to do to survive when your life is at risk. Most of us are not wandering through wolf-infested forests on a regular basis. And so the threats we are experiencing are threats to our ego, threats to our sense of self. And the more we struggle with our sense of self-worth, the more we struggle with our sense of who we are, with our confidence and our self-esteem, the more fragile our ego is, the more easy it is for that ego to feel threatened, the more likely it is that we get defensive. And so really taking a step back and really looking at that concept of ego threat and knowing that if I'm feeling defensive quite often, then chances are I've got some pain in there. I've got some insecurities in there. I've got some unresolved stuff that I need to deal with, and perhaps some confidence to be building. Perhaps I need to start believing in myself more, feeling better about who I am, and kind of building that solid sense of self so that I don't feel kind of knocked around quite so easily. And that's what happens, right? When we're feeling defensive, we're feeling kind of knocked around. We're feeling kind of unsteady on our feet. So we need to kind of fight back, right? And we need to push back in order to try and feel more solid. But what often happens is when we do get defensive, we don't end up feeling more solid. We end up, lashing out and alienating, saying and doing things that we regret, which then makes us feel even more insecure because we're like, oh my gosh, I'm like just so out of control, and I just lash out, and I just get so angry at people and kind of, ruin relationships. I blow things up a lot. because I'm feeling threatened and I just can't seem to control myself. Or maybe I can control myself, but I still am doing things that afterwards I don't like, that I want to feel better about how I'm handling things, that I don't want to feel so threatened. I don't want to go through my life feeling like everything and everyone is a threat and I need to protect myself. I don't like that feeling. I want to feel just more solid and secure and open. And so working through this process that I'm going to teach you, it is a process that you're going to need to practice, right? When it comes to our brains, because we've been doing the same thing the same way for so long, if you've gone through your life feeling really defensive for a long time, and again, it's probably for a good reason, right? Maybe you felt really threatened when you were growing up. Maybe you felt insecure. Maybe you felt unsafe. Maybe you were told things about yourself that made you feel really bad and you continue to just have those same beliefs about yourself. And so whenever those pains or insecurities get hit, you try to protect them, right? So to not blame yourself if you get defensive, not think that you're a terrible person, knowing that all behavior is purposeful. We do it for a reason. It's just not always helpful. It's just not always getting us to our goal. It might think that we're doing something, useful in the moment, that I'm like protecting myself. But then the problems that it can cause, the overall problems it can cause, and then the other feelings that it can bring up in us, like I said, that, feeling angry and feeling upset and feeling resentful a lot of the time, getting really bitter, like that doesn't feel good. And so it can kind of create these bigger issues, even if in the moment, sort of our instinct makes sense. We're trying to protect ourselves. And so going through this process, it's going to be something. If you've been doing this for a long time, then we're going to have to take the time to go through this process several times for it to start really making a longer term impact. And you're going to have to go through it intentionally several times. And then eventually your brain will start to pick up on it and it will become more automatic. And I can tell you from my own experience, as someone who used to take things really personally, get offended really easily, get put off, by kind of seemingly insignificant things in hindsight, but in the moment it always feels like a big deal. And feeling really defensive and feeling like I needed to protect myself a lot. And then learning how to manage my mind and emotions when those triggers, when those things are being triggered, when that defensiveness is being triggered, those pains are being hit, those insecurities are being brushed up against. And learning how to do it, repeating it, and then kind of changing those patterns in my brain, doing it intentionally at first, and then it eventually does become more automatic. You just kind of change those neural pathways in your brain. When you handle something intentionally differently enough times, creates new patterns in your brain, and then it becomes more automatic, where you just sort of are automatically able to manage those triggers and calm your defenses and cool your jets. So let's get into talking about this process of what to do when whoever or whatever is triggering your defensiveness. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to take a step back and we need to take a bit of an inventory and reflect on the people, places, or circumstances that tend to trigger our defensiveness the most often. Is it a certain coworker that when they make certain side comments, you get really defensive? Is it a family member that when they, have opinions about what you're doing with your life or what they think you should be doing with your life, you get really defensive? What is it? Who is it? Where is it that you tend to get defensive? What topics? What issues? Right? What kind of looks? What tones of voice? For me, I get defensive, and I'm really working on this one, but I get defensive when someone talks to me in a belittling voice. That, for me, really kind of triggers a defensiveness. It actually triggers quite a bit of anger, being talked down to. And that's of course, that's understandable. No one likes to get talked down to, but I'm learning how to not get defensive around it and how to be assertive around it. And just be able to say like, hey, I don't like that. I'm not okay with that. I don't talk to you like that. Please don't talk to me like that. Instead of being like, what's your problem? Like, you're an ass, or you're a jerk, or who do you think you are? Like, right, not lashing out, being able to say like, I don't like this. This is what I would like instead. That's not defensiveness. That is assertiveness. Defensiveness is pushing back. Assertiveness is holding your ground. So just to kind of make that distinction there. But as that was just an aside to giving you an example of that, but really just getting curious about the things that trigger your defenses, where you notice yourself either lashing out or just like standing there frozen, right? That kind of fight, flight, freeze response shows up when you're feeling threatened. You just kind of stand there frozen and overwhelmed with emotion and don't know what to do. Or you like run away and avoid because you just can't handle it, right? Or maybe if it's in a meeting, you go and sit and cry in the bathroom because, you run away and like cry in the bathroom instead of actually dealing with and addressing the issue in a mature way because it just feels too overwhelming. Take stock. Where do you get triggered? Where does that defensiveness get triggered? Then, when we do notice ourselves feeling triggered, feeling that defensiveness come up, immediately notice what it feels like in your body, what that sort of tension, maybe it's like a tense feeling in your belly, or like a hot feeling in your head, or like kind of a tingling feeling in your armpits, where you're like, oh no, you didn't. Or you're just like, or you feel that kind of shame, right? Someone gives you a certain look and you kind of feel shame, and then you get ready to like, face it or run from it or just kind of freeze in it. Start to pay attention as to what it feels like in your body. Notice it. What's coming up for me right now? What's going on in my body? And then slow your breath, right? When we are getting defensive, that fight flight response is kicking in and we are going into self-preservation mode. And so then we lose that kind of rational thought from our brain, and our emotional brain kicks in, and our fight or flight, our survival is trying to kick in. And so then we can't think clearly. And so what we need to do is we need to break that cycle. We need to get in there. We need to start breathing to get more oxygen to our brain, get the blood back to our brain instead of our limbs that are going to help us, fight or flight out of the situation. We need to get the blood back into our brain so we can access the cortex, which is our rational thinking brain, and be able to just sort of slow the whole process down a bit. So take a deep breath. Just be able to sit there and be like, okay, I notice that tense feeling in my belly. I notice that hot feeling in my head. I notice that maybe that lump in my throat or that tingling in my armpits. And I'm just going to take a breath and I'm just going to notice I'm feeling defensive right now. A pain has been hit. An insecurity has been brushed up against. Something is feeling threatened. Which brings us to our next step, is to then start to get curious. What is feeling threatened? If someone gave me a sideways look in a meeting, what am I making it mean? Am I making it mean that they think that I'm stupid? They think they're better than me? They are just like judging me in some way? Is that what I'm making it mean? If my parent comments on my weight, am I making that mean that, that I'm gross, that I'm unattractive, that there's something wrong with me because they have a certain opinion about what a human body is supposed to look like based on their own socialization? It's kind of just made up anyways. What's going on? Why am I feeling defensive? What am I thinking is happening? What am I thinking that I need to protect? The next step is to consider the source. And we so rarely do this. We give so many people who haven't earned that authority to have opinions on our lives or whatever it is. They haven't earned the authority to have that. Or maybe it is just that that's the way that they talk, right? We get really defensive. And instead of just being like, okay, this is kind of the way this person just talks to everyone. They're kind of a little bit gruff. They may be a little bit aloof. Maybe they kind of, look out of the side of their eyes when they're talking to everyone. And I'm interpreting that as judgmental, but maybe that's just the way that they are. And I'm going to consider the source and be like, okay, maybe they're not actually judging me. That's just the way that they are. And I am interpreting it in that way. And I'm getting defensive because I'm feeling threatened, but maybe that's not what's really happening. Or maybe it's just something that person always does. We're like, I know that this person in this meeting is always going to question my ideas. And I don't need to get defensive. That's just what they always do. I don't need to be surprised when they do it. I don't need to get put off when they do it. That's just what they do. That's just them being them. I can decide how I want to handle it in that particular circumstance. Right? Or maybe it's like a sibling that comments on your career choices. And whenever you get together with the family, they always comment like, oh, that's what you're doing. Oh, that's interesting. And then you have this need to like defend yourself instead of being like, you know what? Now they're always kind of judgy. They always are kind of like looking their nose down at people. I don't need to be surprised. I don't need to get worked up about it. That's just them, whatever. I'm just I'm not gonna kind of absorb that. I'm not gonna let whatever they have going on control what I have going on. I'm gonna be in charge of what I have going on and what I'm feeling. Do I need to get worked up about this? Right? Consider the source. And then also really deciding, does this person do I want to give this person authority to throw me off? Do I need to defend myself against this person? With what they think and what they say and what their opinions are, what their criticisms are, do I want to take those seriously, or do I just want to give them back to them and just leave it? So consider the source and then decide whether or not you want to accept or leave it, or just walk away from the whole thing. We're allowed to do that. We're allowed to just sort of not engage with someone who is acting a certain way, whether intentionally or not. We get to decide how and if we want to engage with that. Now, there are going to be times where we're not just going to say, whatever, that's your opinion. Like, I don't accept it. I don't take it. You don't know what you're talking about. There might be times where someone has feedback, and instead of getting defensive, we can listen and consider and be able to say, okay, I don't need to feel threatened. My ego doesn't need to feel threatened. I'm not a terrible person. If someone has feedback on my idea and is like looking for kind of maybe has found some holes in my argument and is trying to make this idea better, right? I don't need to feel threatened by that and think I'm a terrible person. It's just like my human capacity has limits. My brain has limits. And here's a person who's offering more to that. Maybe I could consider that. Or if someone's questioning my decision, maybe it's not that they're a horrible person that doesn't trust me. Maybe it's that they've had some different experience and they're concerned and are just offering some alternatives or wanting me to consider this at a deeper level. And maybe I haven't done that, and maybe I need to do that. Yeah, maybe there is some truth to what they're saying. Maybe there is some validity there. I don't have to push everyone and everything away that kind of pushes back against what I have or what I'm doing or what I'm thinking. I can maturely take a step back and consider it, and then I can decide whether or not I want to reflect on it and do something differently with it, or if I just want to give it back and say, you know what, actually, I'm good with this. I'm proud of this decision. I'm doing this. I have thought this out, and I am going to go in this direction, or I'm going to keep doing this, or I am going to keep things the way that they are because I have thought about this and I'm okay with it. And I'm also okay if you're not. So deciding what we want to reflect on and what we want to give back, that we don't want to or not interested in receiving. And then this natural progression, after we have considered the source, after we have decided whether or not we are going to accept and take in and reflect on what this person is saying and do some learning from it, or if we're just going to give it back to them and say, no, not interested, not available for this, I'm just going to leave that with you, then we actually take the action to do that. So we decide whether or not we're going to engage in that conversation and actually engage in the conversation, help to understand the person's feedback, ask for more information, maybe learn from it, grow from it, expand from it. We decide if we're going to do that, or if we're just going to say, you know what, I'm going to allow you to have those thoughts, have those opinions, and I'm just going to leave that with you. And whatever you do with that, that is up to you. The other thing that we can do is choose selective non-engagement, where we're just deciding to just not engage. If the person makes the comment or rolls the eyes or, kind of says the thing out of the side of their mouth, that we're just like, I'm just not available. I'm just not engaging with this. I'm not going to defend this. I'm not going to bring this, get involved in this. I'm just going to choose to not engage with that. Not interested, not available. So that is another option. Another option that you might want to try that can be really great, especially if you don't want to get defensive, not get pulled into something, not kind of create unnecessary drama, is to just agree with the person. It's called rolling with resistance. It's a tool we use in psychology a lot of the time. When you feel resistance from someone, just rolling with it and agreeing with them. So let's say you're at a family dinner and your mom is like, oh, going for seconds, are we? Just rolling with it and being like, yeah, would you like to have seconds too? Right? Or if someone is like, wow, well, that's an interesting career choice. It is, isn't it? So just fully agreeing with them. Oh, wow, you seem to be pretty confident about yourself, aren't you? Yeah, actually, I've been working on my confidence. I am. Thanks for noticing. right? Not in like a thanks for noticing kind of attitude way, but more of just like, yeah, it's true. Instead of getting defensive, instead of like pushing back, just sort of rolling with it. And knowing that I don't have to defend myself. If I am solid and secure in who I am, if I feel comfortable and confident in my decisions, my choices, what I'm doing with my life, then I can both be open to feedback, consider feedback, decide what I want to do with that feedback, or just go with it and not defend myself or just not engage with it at all. And this is going to really help us become less defensive when we work on our ego, right? When we don't have a fragile ego that's really kind of feeling easily kind of pushed around and threatened, when we're like, I'm solid, I'm secure, I've done my work, I'm good. You might still get like initially triggered by stuff, but you're going to be able to catch it a lot quicker and move through it and realize that I don't need to be defensive. Feeling solid and secure in who you are starts with being able to trust yourself. That's the foundation of any healthy relationship, including our relationship with ourselves. I have a guide for you. It's the simple steps to self-trust. You can get it in the description below. That's going to walk you through the step-by-step process to be able to trust yourself more. It's a great foundational piece to help you build that confident, secure sense of self and just feeling good about who you are. You can grab that. Also get on the waitlist for the Shift Society so that you know when we open up registration. You want to get in there, taking this work to the next level, doing it with support from me, the rest of the community, accountability, step-by-step tools. It's amazing. You're going to love it. Get more information about that in the description as well. Always good to have you here. Love to hear your thoughts. And until next time, take good care.